All right, hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Brogan, and today we are back for another trading stream. Hopefully you are all well. Hopefully you've had a great evening so far. I'm going to start the timer before anything else. I hear a bike. There we go. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. Had a bike coming down the hill, so I thought I'd wait. Anyways, hopefully you are all doing well. Hopefully you've had a great evening or a great morning. Obviously, time zones and whatnot. I am pretty happy about the charts. I know I say that every single time, and my interest seems to be the same thing over and over again, and it's like it's structured but not structured. I say the same things, yet there's no structure to it, but whatever. 110.266, we did have some interesting stuff going on Friday, I think the day was Thursday. I think it was Friday. With the non-farm payroll, basically the employment systems in America. I actually have some tweets and some data about that. I just wanted to look at it quickly, and it did have an effect on the market. It hasn't really done much to the market. We went up really hard, we went down really hard, and now we're right back to where we were. Pretty much. So it wasn't, a crazy thing, but we did obviously the market pretty much across the board, or at least in Bitcoin anyway. We did have a massive move upwards and then a massive move back downwards to how we've been moving, and we've been moving down so far. So I think we're doing pretty well on Bitcoin, doing pretty well across the board. Again, Ethereum is same. Like I said, we've gone up, we've gone down, we've pretty much sat at the same position we were looking at last stream. So in terms of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, we're pretty much in the same spot. Solana has come down a bit actually towards its support. We were kind of talking about that last stream in terms of we had the support areas at 200, 198, whatever it was exactly. But in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum, they both went up and back down again. So Ethereum is literally back at its support point we were already talking about Tuesday. Bitcoin had a massive move upwards and a massive move back downwards, and has started to continue to trend downwards. So basically in the exact same scenarios we were already talking about on Thursday. So obviously we'll still talk about them. Not saying there's going to be a massive update to what I've said so far. I am looking at Liberty Finance in a second. I like to get out of the way. I know people are interested. Obviously, a lot of people have bought it. We have had obviously massive move down. I think we've got to about 16 cents. We've actually started to come up now. We had a massive gap. We've started to come try to fill it. It's kind of crazy going on with Liberty Finance. Literally just before I started the stream, it started to pump quite hard. So it's like a wild horse. I'm very interested to see how it goes. And we will look at it in a second. And obviously so on and so forth. We've got other coins to look at. Let's just get into percentages and then we can move on. So 24-hour, 0.85% down on Bitcoin, 110.265. So again, still hovering in that range we were talking. Obviously, as we were talking about Bitcoin on Thursday, in the same range we're kind of right now. So not too dissimilar from obviously Thursday stream. 1.4% up in the 7-day. Again, not really. Again, we've come from a low point. We've had that retracement all the way up towards 120. To whatever it was. I don't know where the high was exactly, and obviously we've had a retracement, so it kind of makes sense we're sitting near about that 1.5% point, because we haven't hit the 106 mark yet or anything like that, but we are obviously starting to get towards there. Ethereum 0.71% down 24 hour. Again, there were pretty much similar moves across the board. Everything kind of like had a big pump. Solana, I don't remember a noticeable move when I was looking at it before the stream, but in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum anyway, they both had, a quite quick run up and a quite quick run down as a response to what was going on. I do want to have some talk about it, because there were some tweets and something happened with it. There was a glitch by the people who announced the data, and I think that absolutely messed up the whole market. There's a big glitch, everything dumps, and then we pumped again and we dumped. It's crazy. So I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. And 1.7% down on a 7-day for Ethereum, because again we've been seeing it coming down from its all-time high. Obviously since we wicked up above it, again Ethereum's been holding pretty strong, considering we obviously came above all-time high, and wicked above it, and we printed above second all-time high, and I think even the all-time high we got really close. I don't know if I think we might have just wicked, but again coming above all these really important areas on the daily anyway. We obviously had a nice graceful retracement, but it's not been as drastic as some other coins. So I'm quite impressed with Ethereum. Obviously, you guys know my outlook. Obviously, if you've been here on the previous streams, again, we will be going through it still, so you guys will know. But, I am still hopeful on Ethereum, as we've talked about with Benjamin Cowan, which is very interesting as well, because obviously, Ben Cowan and Litecoin are beefing, which is I don't even know I would ever have thought that would happen in the world, but obviously here we are. Obviously, Litecoin was making fun of his forehead, which is very grown up for a coin which doesn't do anything. But There's been a bit, which is pretty funny, but obviously he's been saying as well that he thinks Ethereum can have one more run upwards towards, you know, highs and doing the all-time high, which I am kind of in agreement with, based on just my opinion and whatnot. But and then obviously fine Solana, $200, 2% down 24-hour and 0.56 down 7-day. So again, worst of both worlds for Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I mean, Ethereum is down both ends as well, to be fair. But you know, it is pretty much down because we did have actually comparatively an actual run up last stream. Where Bitcoin and Ethereum didn't really have that. Solana had a bit of a run up, and obviously we started to move down, so kind of makes sense. But anyway, let's look at. We do actually have some winners. Well, as you can see, the first time in ever, I'm actually saying World Finance is up. On the 24 hour, we can see 11.18%. Again, 7-day still down 10.58. So you can see in a singular day, and bear in mind a singular hour, we're up nearly 5.5%, 5.25% on World Finance in the last hour. And guess what? It's 9:06, so it's only really been in 6 minutes, and we're still up 5%. So pretty crazy. Again, obviously, I can give a little hint here. We can see that crazy movement. We will get onto it. But obviously, it's nice to see it's going up. Obviously, for the people who actually care about it, it's nice to see it's going up. But obviously, my outlook is still not very positive. But again, there are some coins going up, which is nice. Again, waste of time. Number 2, waste of time. But I mean, if we scroll down, we start to see some stable coins pretty soon. So maybe about 20 coins are actually going up today. So pretty much, you know, a relatively just, I mean, it's just not that negative, to be fair. I mean, there's more negative than not, but a decent day nonetheless for most coins. I do want to look at SERP. I haven't actually looked at SERP since last stream. I always type USDT, and I don't mean to. 49.48, you know, a slight move down, but not really much. And then there is Sui. I'm actually interested in Sui. Free. Okay, interesting. So we obviously we'd come to that 3.11 area, and what this is on the 1 day, 7 day. Here we go. So yeah, we came down towards the $3.10 area, $3.11 area, as we've been talking about $3.10 to $3.15. Obviously, we came towards $3.11, that in general area for Sui, and it seems like we've started a bit of a move upwards now for Sui, as you can see, coming from that low, rather higher low, nearing a higher high now in this area, and starting to come up a bit, which is nice to see, especially on the 7 day. But obviously, we will get into it as we obviously get into it. So, oh wait, hold on, is this 7 day candles? Okay, no, it's good. Okay, no, it's just a week. I thought I was reading the wrong thing then. I think that's pretty much it. I do want to look at CRO at some point. I know I'm yapping. I've spent 8 minutes doing this. You know what? Let me move on at this point. I'm not going to lie. Let me just move on. I'm talking a lot. I've got a lot to cover. So let's quickly get World Finance out of the way. I don't really want to spend much time on this. I don't really care. We've already talked about most of this TA behind us. Over here, that was Tuesday, Thursday. So we're basically... We were in the midst of this move down. I think we're in the midst of printing this. Obviously, Friday we printed this. In Thursday, we're in the midst of doing this down candle. We have this massive gap here we've come to fill, which is nice. Go to the 1 hour, we can see we have this massive move down, which obviously if we go to the higher time frames, concludes in a giant candle, which obviously we can draw across. We can see if we go from the low, we can see pretty nicely how we've fulfilled this. I think, again, this is great for World Finance. I think... I'll be very intrigued if we actually get up towards pumping anywhere near 26 cent. Because obviously, you know, if we look at the daily or the 4 hour in this case, we can see, excluding this massive like pre-market to current market in terms of what pre-market was trading at versus what it was listed at, we obviously could see this massive dump for World Finance, and then basically from the candle after in this move, we can see general price action from there. Obviously, pre-market was trading at, as I've already talked about 23 cent, whatever it was, when certain markets were opening like Binance. So, you know, from pretty much the second candle of this move onwards is normal price action across the board. And obviously, we can see we had this like low, we had this high, we failed to swing above this high in this case. Again, obviously, we had this pre-market we can ignore, or the listing from the pre-market, whatever. We can ignore that. So it really just pays attention to ignoring this candle, basically. Like if I was to show this, it was basically we're looking like this. Okay, you can't see it on the stream actually. Let me get it properly. There you go. So it's basically like, so we have that singular black candle. That is what I'm looking at anyway, personally. That's the first candle I want to look at, because that's actually current price trading World Finance. I should hit the mic, sorry, on Binance. So that is where we want to look at for actually looking at price action. And we can see, okay, we have this high at 25. We come down, we produce a low, brilliant. We come up, we fail to print past this high. So we're not coming upwards. We've not come from a high. We've not done it. We've not, you know, because again, listing price, I'm ignoring listing price. We have the high with the low. We fail to swing. Fail swing here, so we kind of have this like intermediary, but in this down pump we have a bit of a gap here, which obviously we fulfilled in this candle. We talked about this last stream, and obviously we continue to dump downwards, printing past all these lows here. So again, really starting this downtrend, and after printing past this, and very importantly as well, officially starting the downtrend from this high to low, failed swing, printing down. This low is where we start to look at, oh, it is this low, to be fair. This candle here is where we start to actually acknowledge, okay, we're in a downtrend on the 4 hour, but the major low is this low, and we can see we have this massive print. And one of the ideas, one of the ideologies is, if you have this the displacement which starts this downtrend, if it is this massive gap, is going to be a very sensitive area to come back to for a sell, if you will. Obviously in this case a sell, as we are looking at a downtrend. So in this candle, printing past here to really start this, you know, high low fail swing. If we look at the candle boys and what actually matters, high low fail swing, print downwards, printing past this low, then obviously we can see we've started this move downwards, and this candle kind of initializes this move down relative to this low. So obviously we can see from that, we can acknowledge that we've started a downtrend, and this gap, obviously on the 4 hour in this case, being from this high, which we have pretty much filled. If we draw a wick across, we can see we've pretty much filled it to the T, maybe fractions of a penny off, pretty much within the 21-cent range for the top of this gap. We've filled this area, and now we're starting to hover. I'm not saying this means we're going to dump towards 16 cent, because again, at some point, realistically, Liberty Finance is going to stop coming down. And obviously that's going to be great for people who care. And you can see, you know, on the 1 hour relative, if you do, okay, higher time frame trend, and you do want to take your higher time frame bias into the lower time frames to make sure you know what you're doing. And apart from, I mean, daily, I mean, if we acknowledge it, we've been coming down, we've had a bit of retracement, we've had 4 consecutive daily candles downwards, we've had a gap, we've had a singular candle upwards in the daily to fulfill this gap. You know what I mean? Like, the only really looking at the 4 hour or the 1 hour is when we actually start to see where the trend is. And then obviously we can tell from here the actual general trend. We have this high, basically looking from this low, obviously fail swing, and then obviously we come down. So we basically have this move, and this is a fail. So we know we're in a downtrend. So all this is realistically on the higher time frames, and looking at our, you know, taking into account our bias and what we're actually doing on higher time frames, we're just having a little retracement. You know, we've printed past the low severely, and we're just having a little retracement. So if we go to the 1 hour and you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, look, you've printed past the high. Are we not in an uptrend? In this relative time frame, in this period, yes, okay, we are uptrending towards a higher time frame resistance. But as I've talked about on many of my streams, when we look at, you know, trends on lower time frames, we have to pay attention to the higher time frame. Why are we going to stop going upwards? That's kind of the idea. It's, you know, you go upwards or you go downwards in the market. There's going to be periods in the market or places or certain price areas where you're going to stop doing that, you know, because you're never going to go down forever. You're never going to go up forever. So there's going to be periods in the market which you obviously need to identify where price stops moving in a certain direction. So in this case, it starts from an uptrend. So yes, on the 1 hour, if we go to it, we can look, we can see, okay, cool. We have low, we have a, you know, a high area, we have a low area, we have a high. So we clearly can see in the general trend area, we've printed past these highs here, and we are in this uptrend, and we are starting. But we still have to pay attention to the fact that, okay, yes, we are pumping upwards, and on the daily, all we're really doing is we've had 4 consecutive down candles, massive dump, and now we're just having a bit of retracement. So relative from our high of the actual price action, our high of 26 to a low of 16, us retracing all the way from about 18 cent all the way up towards 21 cent, isn't that drastic. But if you look at the 4 hour or the 1 hour, you know, in this case, 4 hour, you see, okay, massive candle, but you can see this move here is pretty big. So it looks like this massive move, but relative to this move, for example, or if you go from the relative highs here, obviously we have this little move here, relative highs before the move down, because obviously we see we had this retracement, we came to equilibrium, so we can look at this high now. And if you look at this high to this low, we can see equilibrium's about 19-20 cents. So we've only really just about come above equilibrium here. If we draw this out, you can see we're only really come above equilibrium. We've come up into the optimum area here. So we're only really just getting above to optimum area. And this isn't exactly saying, because again, at some point we're going to reverse on Well Finance. At some point we're not going to come below the lows, but relative to the normal downtrend, obviously we have the up, we have the retracement, we have a low, a lower high, we have a move down, we'll have a lower high at some point, and then we'll have a lower low. Is the idea anyway. We're going to start to retrace, and obviously Mike thinks 10 to 11 cent is going to be the area we want to target for in terms of our max lows. Now I do want to try to attempt to use standard deviation because I keep on forgetting how to do it. That's not the right thing. I think, okay, let me do this properly. Just from the high, low. I think it's that, from the high to the low. Or it's something like this. I can't remember exactly. It's something like this, I think. I'll have to obviously go put this in review. But anyways, whatever. If we avert back to how we use this on Bitcoin, the 2 to 2.5 area is a good area and was one of the areas. So you can kind of see in terms of, especially on the candle prints, we can see it's done pretty well. So again, obviously the low was 16, this is 17. Again, we are out. But one of the general areas, one standard deviation away from this move before we had a down move, was this move. Obviously, we come to the 1 cent area here. The idea is 2 to 2.5. It also sits to about 12.5 to 10 cents. So I could definitely agree with. Obviously, he said 10 to 11 cent. I've got 10.5 here, so I could definitely agree with the 10 cent area. So to take that into account for Well-to-Be Finance, the idea that we had this down move, a bit of retracement, and another down move, I could definitely see it comes to 10%. And if we look at relative move, I actually want to see how far does this come down. Okay, I don't think 5 cent. I don't think it's going to be relative to that. But where's this hit? 10 cent. Okay, maybe it's not going to be that big, but I just want to see the relative move if we were to duplicate this move, which I'm not saying we do. But coming from where we are, 10 cent, it's not, it's not great. Like, we've done this similarly before. Obviously, the more we go down, the higher percentage is going to be relative. Because again, if you move from 10 to 5, it's going to be more than 100 to 5. Or no, 100. It's going to be more if we look at it from a high to a low. Because of the fact that if you go from 26 to 5, it's going to be weightier than 10 to 5. I'm saying this wrong. Forgive me. But yeah, I could definitely see 10 to 11% being a target to aim for Well-to-Be Finance. Again, based on... Because all I can do is go off random things. So what best can I do? I can look at, patterns or whatever. What best do you look at when you're trying to predict a all-time low, which you haven't seen before? There's no price action I can go off. It's the same thing for looking at all-time highs, for Bitcoin. Once you get past that all-time high and you're aiming to find where you're going to stop at, it's very hard to realistically find a system which doesn't sound, to an extent, like a reach. Obviously, in your guys' opinion anyway, when I say this, it's like, oh, well, we can take the standard deviation. There's obviously people have got their own methods. There's tons of people who have different ideas on how to predict where highs and lows are going to be in a move, and it's especially hard when you have no price action to base on. So when you're going to all-time lows, when you're going to all-time highs, you can only really get a best guess estimate on where to go to. So for example, obviously the best case I have right now is using standard deviations. Obviously Mike probably has fib retracements or whatever. We also have the idea of psychological levels. So again, 10 cent to 9 cent. 10 cent is going to be a very important level, just like how you'd go from 99 cent to $1. That's going to be a really great area. 99k to 100k is going to be a great area. So it's these kind of certain prices, and obviously fractional prices. So 125k, 150k, 175. Probably 12.5 or whatever. 15 cents. These certain areas, you can just give a best guess scenario as to, how to get to a certain low or certain high, based on no price section. So obviously for me that would be standard deviations, and it does give about a 10 cent to 11% range, as Mike has also talked about as well. So I could definitely expect us to continue downwards. And again, it's very hard for me to talk about because we could equally not do that. You know what I mean? Like it's a new listed coin. It's got a lot of people, a lot of eyes on it. It's again, like I said, new listed. It could, and I said this last stream as well. If anything, I would talk about today, and obviously, as I said last stream, in that stream, anything I would talk about within that stream, which would be less likely to happen or have chance to not happen, it would be Well-to-Be Finance, because of the fact that it's so new listed and whatnot. But again, either way, what we've been talking about, for example, with Tuesday over here, we were talking about aiming past this low at 20 cent. Obviously, it was these lows because we can't really look at that exactly, but, coming below 20 cent. We did dump past it, and I didn't look at standard deviations in this period, but again, I can only give my best guess as for a coin which is newly listed. It's a lot easier for me to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all this sort of stuff when they have so much history to them. So with Well-to-Be Finance, we have come to fill this gap, which is great. We're going to have some resistances in this area. So for example, we have this candle, for example, obviously coming past these lows, coming upwards, engulfing in this candle and dumping. We probably could find resistance in this area, which just so happens to be the optimum area of about 21.5 cents. So we could, if we don't find resistance here, we could start to reverse. Yes, we do have some pretty nice highs here. Example for 23 to about 23 to about 23.5 cent. So it does range. It really does range for Wealthy Finance. So again, if the idea is we are going to continue down towards 10 cent, I would be looking at some areas like this to target as a continuation downwards. But again, we are ripping right now. If we go to the 1 hour, we can see like within 2 hours. If we go to 50-minute, we can see a bit better. So basically in the last hour, we've gone up basically 12%. So it's been a nice run up. Obviously, we've had ranging 5% up and down and whatnot, but especially in this candle, we had an 8% move upwards in no time. If we go to 5 minute, 1 minute even, in just a couple of minutes, we ran up 8%. So obviously, Wealthy Finance is starting to pump. And if we look relative to just that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Just on this period, let me go to actually 5 minutes instead. There we go. Obviously we had this little gap here and whatnot, but you can see like just looking at these pumps, that's not what I wanted to draw. I want to draw it on the 1 hour. Here we go. But you can see like we're really running up here. Barely even getting towards the equilibrium. Obviously we barely scratched. So high, low, low for this run up, and then we have that high here. So we barely even got to equilibrium in this case. We can see we kind of had this massive run up, retrace, massive run up again. This is the 1 minute as well. So we're clearly starting to try and really heavily get upwards towards certain areas on the 1 minute. And especially in this case, it's not like we've had a slight crap move. Obviously, this is a good example of a decent expansion. Again, this is the 1 minute. We do have to be careful. But even on the 50-minute, really good expansion. Left the gap here, just absolutely exploded back upwards again. So we're really running upwards for Wealthy Finance right now. But, is this just us targeting, coming from this period of coming upwards, coming down? Is this whole move just us targeting certain areas behind us? Again, we have pretty equal highs here at 22 cent, as we talked about. But it's going to be different areas here, which we're going to be wanting to target as resistance. So, obviously I'm talking about this as we're still pumping. But it's going to, this area is the general area we want to focus on for resistance. So, it depends. Obviously, it does depend. But I still would agree with the 10 cent mark for Wealthy Finance. I've yapped a lot actually about a coin I don't really care about, so I do want to move on. I think Binance is the main coin, or Binance is the main chain I've looked at Bitcoin on. So on the 1 hour, let's have a look. So actually, I will jump onto the actual data, which occurred. I believe it was Friday. Was it this? Oh no, this was historical. I'm on the right thing. Yeah, United States Month Fund. Let me just go back to the economic calendar, and I could just show the general calendar. We can look at this week impact. There we go. So we can see. Okay, it was Friday. There we go. So it was Friday. We can see unemployment rate, non-farm payrolls. Basically, people who are working jobs and getting paid, and it's basically non-farm. It's like basically non-entrepreneur, farmer, self-hosted type of people. It's people who are working jobs and part of the employment system. Obviously, whatever, it doesn't matter. This obviously came in. Previous was 79k, obviously pretty great, whatever. Came in as 22k. Unemployment rate obviously increased marginally. I don't know what the exact term is in my head, but obviously it did rise. Obviously, technically the highest we've seen in a while, technically. But I think one of the main things with this was also this I wanted to talk about. So. June was the first month of outright job contraction. Is this? I think this is. Oh, this is basically showing that. Okay, yeah. The reason I want to show this was I want to show the historical data of people basically employed, and it was pretty low. It was pretty low. But I also wanted to jump to this because I think this was obviously an equal reason as to not only did the data come out not very great, it also came out not very great in the way that it didn't get released properly. So the US Bureau of Labor Statistics says it is experiencing technical difficulties just 30 minutes before the highly anticipated August jobs report. So obviously this wasn't great either. This obviously wasn't great either. Again, data comes out 2:30. So we had a whole thing going on. It was basically here. So I can't remember what the UTC is for America. I think it's like 5, is it? So this would be 3... So 1. It was I can't remember what the exact candle is, but obviously we ran upwards. We were doing our thing. We were having resistance. We were talking about this Thursday again. Obviously we'd I was talking at the time on the stream that I do expect us to hold this as support. I don't think it's going to be long-term support. So obviously we can see it was Thursday 10 o'clock. We looked at Bitcoin, or actually no, 9 o'clock because it's more earlier. So basically in this area, we'd had this bounce. We started to come upwards. And I was saying, I don't think we're going to have, because obviously we just started to fill this gap here on the 1 hour. And I was saying, I don't necessarily think this is going to be, I don't think we're not going to see support here. So obviously we had this gap. It was like, oh, we had this massive expansion. Oh, well, we're going to reverse. But you really look at it, you can see, obviously it's actually more than 1 hour here for this massive support point. This is clearly a greater support point than is just a tiny little gap here. So obviously we were saying on the stream for Bitcoin on Thursday that I reckon we will hold this as a support area. And I was saying I don't necessarily think it's going to be an area where we're going to see long-term support and we're going to reverse on the higher time frames. So what we can see from that is we did have that retracement. Again, obviously we were talking here midpoint, consequent encroachment, whatever you want to call it. We did hit that really nicely, actually. We were using it really nicely. And obviously we pumped. And then obviously we hit the top end of the support area. If we draw it across, obviously you can see we had this nice support area. So we've come upwards and we used the midpoint, used the top, obviously pumping up towards old resistance areas we've used previously. And obviously some of these equal highs here. A really nice area. Obviously we were pumping in this whole area. This is obviously the day of news. I know some people, it's not only do people not trade news like hours, a lot of people don't even trade the news day because of that variation in price action. And again, coming into Friday was that day, and we had this massive pump, and obviously had this whole period of trading, and then we entered into 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock area, where, or my time anyway, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock area in my general area is when America opens. We had this massive dump from this resistance area, and obviously we had just massive gap and whatnot. And again, coming into this period, if we go on to some latter end of this, we can see this is more so 3 o'clock is when the markets open. Latter end of this is when we start to dump. I don't know, again, like I said, I don't know relative to my time frame, I don't know exactly when the data released, but we can kind of garner an understanding of when it probably released within this period, about 4, and we had this massive dump. If it's 2 hours, I don't know if it is 2 hours. I thought it was 5, but maybe it's not. Maybe I can't remember what exactly when the data was. But if we can kind of see, like, relative to all this price action, this is clearly the point in which something happened because of just how rapid we came down. If we go to the 1 minute, even the 1 minute, you can see it on the 1 minute how rapid it was. It was a period of maybe 37 minutes. Oh, no, that's not right. Yeah, about 37 minutes. You can see on the 5 minute a bit better. You can see it was a period of about 40 minutes, which had this massive rundown. From this obviously helpful that we had a resistance area, but we just kind of came down. And then we can see the resultant of this. Okay, let me move back. There we go. Is obviously we had this massive dump. We left this massive gap. We can see we came to fulfill it a bit, and obviously we've continued downwards and whatnot. We've just had this massive resistance and continued downwards. And we've had these, obviously, this move upwards. We had these highs and lows and whatnot. We can see on this previous price action, we printed past these lows, printed past this low, obviously formed all these lows here. Kind of had this like this period where we weren't really moving up or down, and then we start to come downwards, and obviously we print past these lows, print past this low, and we're starting to head towards previous low of the daily. So realistically, like I said in the intro, like the movement we had in this period of coming into Friday, obviously Asia time, coming into America where we dumped, it didn't really mean much in terms of the price action. And we obviously we did continue upwards one more time, but we didn't really hit a certain area of difficulty. We've kind of come upwards, come right back down. Obviously, we haven't hit 109.5, but we are clearly heading towards that area now. So obviously, the chances that I still do believe that we are going to see us come past this midpoint. I don't think it's going to be an area of support, which I think is going to be a thing of long-term difficulty. Obviously, like I said, and obviously, if you look at relatively equal highs, we can see obviously we kind of had this like M shape. I do think we are going to head past this. Whichever way you look at the charts, I still am, in my opinion anyway, opinionated on the fact that we are going to be seeing us come past this 109.5 area and aiming for the low we've been waiting for. I've been waiting for a long period of time now. So in terms of new TA for Bitcoin, there's not really much to give. Again, I can only really give what we talked about last. Again, it's basically this period. And obviously, we've talked about this being the data, and we talked about us coming to midpoint of this for resistance. We talked about the dump. We had this massive gap here, came to fulfill it a bit. Obviously, didn't fulfill the entire area. Obviously, we have different gaps on the way down. So, for example, the midpoint of this one is probably the optimum area. You can see we hit this midpoint of the resistance, or the buy at the sell area, whatever. And obviously, we hovered a long period of time. We didn't really move, which is kind of interesting. Had another kind of gap on the way downwards, which we fulfilled. If we go to the 30-minute, we actually might see there we go, that's a bit better. So we can see this is the addition of the 15-minute candles. So again, two 15-minute candles are going to be one 30-minute candle. So we can see in this singular one 30-minute candle, we fulfilled this area pretty nicely. So again, obviously, if we go to 15-minute, we can see it ranges the area. So we fulfill that quite nicely. So from there, obviously, we've continued to dump, we've continued to print past lows. So again, in my opinion, I do still think we are in this period of retracement, coming towards lows and aiming to continue in our downtrend. So realistically, there's not much I can talk about. I can look at the 15-minute, I can look at these retracements. We've printed past these low pretty heavily with this massive expansion. Okay, let me actually change this. I can't get the high. There we go. So in terms of, if we have this downtrend, yes, we do have some of these areas here. If we go to the 30-minute, we can see the singular expansion downwards. And again, it's not like, and this is obviously a good sign of a downtrend, it's not like we've had these pathetic little retracements, or we've had a crappy little downtrend or displacement, if you will, and we've been moving like this. It's not like we're doing this and we're just really hovering. Obviously, we started to do this in the period of the data and whatnot, especially into Saturday. But obviously, as we've or earlier today anyway, and obviously this is a good sign that we've started a big move downwards, and we're kind of hovering a bit. We're not really retracing. So again, good sign in the fact that we're in this downtrend. Again, if we look at it on the wider time frame, if you will, it's probably not the best way of saying that. You can see obviously massive move down, slight retracement, continuing downwards. Only really starting the downtrend here. Again, we only really hovered into this, and then we had a really weird period where we didn't move, basically opening up into today, and now we're starting a bit of a move down, especially a bit more expansionary on the 30 minutes. So I do think we are going to be continuing downwards again, and even if we start to retrace, and obviously we're starting to do these candles which have really crappy wicks, we could have a little bit of a reversal to try and get up towards a gap area. But in this whole period towards optimum area and equilibrium is this massive gap. So I definitely think we'll probably retrace to fulfill this 110.5 area maybe, and then continue downwards. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Not much else to say. So again, we will see how it goes, but I will obviously keep my eyes on it. But I don't really think there's much else to say because it's not really done too much. So Ethereum, let me jump on. So there we go. A very similar scenario, basically very similar scenario. I am very intrigued with Ethereum though, because we're kind of on. I think I kind of alluded to this on Thursday in terms of the idea that we're kind of having this consolidatory period where we're kind of doing these highs and lows and whatnot. But if we kind of look at the highs here, if we go to the 1 hour, we can see we have these highs. Obviously, we have this high, whatever. We have these triple highs here, relative equal double highs here. These highs, relative equal highs in these two. We have another period, so we have all these three highs here, which we've had in a period. Obviously, we came above some of these kind of sextuple equal highs here, whatever it is, and obviously came above here, had a massive dump. Again, this was in the period of the data and whatnot. Again, this is about no, it wasn't. It was about 3 to 4 o'clock. Again, I don't know what the time zone differences in America. I don't know exactly when data released and whatnot. But I don't remember it being about an hour. I think America's a lot. I thought it was a lot further behind. So maybe we dumped during the day of the American Open because they knew we had data out. Or they knew they had data out. So again, American Open, it would make sense if we were to dump, especially coming from a period of coming past all these highs. Again, triple equal highs here, these kind of equal highs. We had all these, these highs down here, all these highs up here. Obviously, just about missing this high. We came above all this in this move and then expanding downwards. This period upwards before this expansion downwards is going to be resistance for sure. We have this massive wick, obviously too high, all the highs we just talked about. We have this high, we have these two equal highs and this high, and obviously this old high here as well. So we have this whole period here of highs, which are going to be a really good target for Ethereum to want to aim towards. And I think as we kind of consolidate in this period, as we're holding this area of support, as we're holding this higher time frame daily as support here, as you can see we wick to it, you can see how undecisive we are for Ethereum. We don't really have big expansionary move downwards, especially in this print. And I did talk about this last stream as well. If we compare last move upwards versus these moves, we can see yes, obviously we had this high, we've had a printed high, we haven't printed past this low, so it's not really anything of concern for me. I think this is a scenario where we have this low here where it's very easy to get to, but we haven't got to it. We have these lows here where if we continue upwards will be the next target for if we print past them. Very similar to Bitcoin. Obviously, I was talking about this the entire time for Bitcoin as well, where the low was at 90k, let's say. We had this massive run up, or I can't remember, like, it might have been 100k, whatever it was. We had the low, right? We had the massive run upwards, and then we had this low here, and then we were just about doing this low on the weekly. So until we printed that low, and then we did another high, the low to print past to be in a downtrend was this low down here, right? But once you print that low and try and get past that high, either fail or not, this is the low to aim for. So you can see on the weekly, we kind of did this, like a two molars next to each other, or two teeth next to each other, whatever. We kind of have this period where obviously we'd come up from this massive run. We had this like semi-low where the candles were equal here, semi-low, equal here. We had the wick above the old high, and then we dumped, and this was the low, and then we printed past this low. So instead of that being the low, this is the low. So when you have that next low upwards, and you get past it, that's your downtrend. You're not looking at this low anymore, you're looking at this low. So that's kind of a similar scenario where I see Ethereum being in, where the higher we print where we don't continue to expand, the easier it is to get towards the low we just printed. So for example, if we go back to here, you know, in this whole period, we had a massive expansion. This was great. Equal highs, second all-time high. This was the interesting part. It's like we've just come past the second all-time high and done equal highs, and we've only had a slight bit of retracement comparatively. So instead of this being the low at 3,300, it's now 4,060. And then we come above, obviously get past these highs, you know, fail to print past this all-time high, to be fair, actually. Wick past it, whatever. Start to retrace. This is now the low. So if we were to print past this, that's us, you know, reversing. You know, that's us, that's the reversal. And obviously, in this case, if we had these lows where we are now, we start to print and get above some of these areas, 4,600. The low is now at 4,200. So the longer we spend in this period where we don't kind of print downwards, the higher this low is going to get. So it's going to get to a very close period where I think if we have one more run up from this massive support we have on the daily, we have one more run upwards, we take this, you know, liquidity, whatever you want to coin it, and when we dump, the low isn't going to be here anymore. From this area, the low isn't going to be here, it's now going to be here. So for us to get past this, from getting past all-time highs, and then start to reverse, is going to be a lot easier. Very similar to how we had with Bitcoin, where we did our all-time high, 123k, we hovered a bit, whatever, and then we came up one more time, got past the high, failed to print, whatever, and then you know, instead of that being the low, like we talked about, it was this low, we printed past, and now we're in this downtrend. So I think a very similar scenario is happening for Ethereum, where I am in complete parallel with Ben, where he's saying he thinks Ethereum can have one more run up. I personally think that as well. Again, we had this massive run down. Again, I want to look at the 2-day here. So we can kind of like try and add up some of these days here. We can see, for example, on the 3-day, we have this midpoint. On the 1-day, whatever, we have the gap here. X, Y, Z, we have different periods and different days. It's actually probably best to look at it on the 2-day. It's all the same thing though, realistically. If you look at the daily here, it's the same gap. It's all the same gap. Basically coming into this 4,060 area like we talked about. Again, the idea of the support points and whatnot, we have this move down into this area of buy, and then we have this candle upwards, and this candle covers only this candle. So this is the support area. We have this area which comes back up into it, and then a massive explosion back upwards. This is now support as well. So we have this kind of stacked support area, which obviously we've been using. Again, it's not like we've not been using it. We had these two lows here on the lower time frames. We used it at this midpoint. We had this max low we've seen so far on the major support, which is kind of what we've been focusing on. And obviously we've been holding this support area ever since. So I do think at some point we're either going to wick past these lows and pump, and either way I do think we're going to want to target these highs. And if we compare these highs and these lows, again, you know, we came past these two lows with this move. We've had all these lows here. We've come past with this move. So we don't really have too many lows to target here. But if we look here, we have this high here, this high, this high, this high, this high. This entire period, apart from this move here for these two, for this high maybe, we have triple equal highs here. We have this high, and then we have this high. And obviously we have some highs up here. So this whole period, about 4,500 to about 4,490. So again, a $20 to $10 range are all highs I think Ethereum's going to want to target. So I do think at some point we're going to see our low, we're going to target up here, we're going to print, we're going to start to uptrend, and especially on the lower time frames, we're going to be printing past all this. We're going to pump, we're going to retrace, we're going to start to move upwards. And I think Ethereum is going to have one more leg upwards. And again, if we consider the low to the high and the main area, which is about here, You can see we've been sitting in it the entire time. We've had this massive move upwards. We've had this hoverage here. I think we're gonna see that one more leg upwards, and then we're gonna print past the low. And I still think that. And again, it's annoying to say, you know, going from Thursday today to today's stream. There's not really much I could say, especially from the payroll data in America. We had a one move upwards and a one move downwards. Especially here, you can see Thursday at 6 to about 10. This was when we talked about Ethereum finding support. And the entire period from there till now has changed what? 0.3%. We came up, we came down, and we're at support. That's it. So there's not really much I can talk about for Ethereum, because there's not really much we've done. So what I've been talking about is going to be, and obviously we can see on lower time frame, we had this low, some lows here. Obviously we took that low. We basically have these equal lows here. Obviously we've taken them. This low here obviously took previous lows behind us and whatnot. We actually did equal lows down here, but that's pretty much it. And again, I do think we could get past this main area and come towards this midpoint again. It could definitely very well do that. But considering this whole period, again, we have these equal highs up here even. We have one more set even. If we look at it, if we get a trend line here, we can see we have these equal highs here as well. So 4,120. We have this high, 4,497. Bit low at 4,490 with these triple equal highs here. This high, 4,500 is pretty much on the dot. We could probably move that to here actually, because this one's kind of taken. So equal highs, this high, triple equal highs. We have so many highs we want to target. And I do think Ethereum's going to want to target these things. So I think 4,500 could be a great target to aim for at some point soon. But again, until then, we are going to be sitting in this area. And I do think at some point, we are going to be targeting. I don't know why it's moved to Solana when I didn't want to move to Solana. I think we're going to be wanting to move on. So we will obviously see. So Solana, let's move on. So again, we were talking about some of these support points. We had this support on the 197. Basically, last time we talked about Solana, okay, we did actually have a bit of a move during 4 to 6. Obviously, we had this move. We had a gap here. So again, Solana had a bit of a different story where Ethereum's been at its support point. Bitcoin's was already uptrending. Bitcoin was already uptrending on the higher-ish 1 hour, 4 hour time frame. So again, we came to a longer period resistance level. But with Solana's case, we already had a bit of a run-up. Solana already had a bit of a run-up in this period where we started to form past these lows and have these gaps here, where Solana had previous liquidity to aim for, in theory. Again, there's people, you can coin it what you want. Again, I'll just say sell area. Ethereum had, Solana had previous sell area. Again, we had these triple equal highs here. Again, a very good target, as we've been talking about. Triple equal highs. We had this high. We had kind of these stacked highs here with these two highs, and then we had this gap here, which obviously we kind of tickled into. But if we go to the 2 hour, we might see a bit of a different story. So you can see here, we can extend it a bit more. Maybe if we go to the 3 hour, we can't really extend it here. What about the 4 hour? 4 hour doesn't have anything. So it's basically the 1 hour. And we can see this gap here. I do want to go to the 30 minute and see if we have. Okay, we can expand it on the 30 minute. We can see here. Okay, cool. The 30 minute looks a bit better. We can see everything in a bit more detail now. So we can see, obviously, we have these lows and whatnot. We barely print past this low here. We don't really print. We're only just starting this downtrend. We have this lower high. We come down, expansion move downwards. This is the expansionary move, which results in us printing past major lows. This is us starting the downtrend. So this is going to be a very good target. Similar to how we looked at with Liberty Finance. These areas, when you first initially start this downtrend from this area with this expansionary move, these are going to be very good areas to target, especially when you have 15 million highs to target. Again, 3 highs, 1 high, 1 high, 1 high. We have like 4 sets of highs here, which are going to be a very good target. We have this whole set of highs, and we have this gap. So coming up into this area to fulfill this area and then come downwards was going to be a good target to aim for Solana. So I'm not surprised during the period of America opening and the subsequent like kind of London area where we had a run upwards. Obviously, the data, whether it be in America or just America or not, is going to be global data to trade. Again, obviously London, the anticipation of us coming upwards and America dumping because of data, whatever. And again, some people talked about, we were talking about interest rates, obviously, last stream, but obviously, I don't think we actually talked about Friday's data. But obviously, some people are going to think it's going to go up, some people think it's going to go down. And this is just that period where I'm sure there's some people who thought we were going to come up towards 216 from this data, and tons of people who didn't. Obviously, in my case, I already knew we had these gap areas, we had these highs. Obviously, I know I've just drawn them. But the conclusion of last stream was already us coming towards this support area, us coming for this retracement, especially this area for retracement. I know it's very messy. I need to clean up my chart a bit. But we were already talking about us coming towards these support areas. So even though we're printing past these, towards these lows, I'm not too concerned for Solana. But yeah, that's kind of some of the older TA about, during Friday, so I can delete this and whatever. We don't really have to talk about it too much because we already talked about it. So that's kind of the reason why we stopped there. Great. Obviously, Bitcoin had its old order block. Ethereum had highs. I actually didn't know. I actually didn't really look at Ethereum too much. We had equal highs, whatever. We just stopped at some highs. Obviously, Solana had this gap from this expansion downwards. You can see easily on this trend. We have this set of lows, this low. You can see this low we didn't print past. But we can see in this singular candle where we had that gap, as we talked about, we printed past this low. So this expansion downwards was what caused us to have the downtrend. So again, a really good area to target for to have a good sell setup. So obviously we just about missed it with this move, but obviously we had that data point, which obviously brought us up into this area. So about $209, $210, and then we start to retrace again. So I do still think we are continuing downwards towards our support areas for Solana, and I do still think we can see our longer term wants for Solana to get above highs again and aim towards 223, 225. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think Solana's going to continue to retrace a tiny bit towards its support areas, about $197, $198, whatever it was. Precisely, I think is around about that area. Yeah, about $197.50. I think we're going to be retracing towards that area, and then probably might be seeing a bit of a stopping point there. Obviously, we will see. But that's kind of just my opinion so far on Solana. It hasn't really changed since last stream because, again, nothing's really changed since last stream. So there's not that much to say about it. I am now moving on to SIP. What's nice, I've actually never done this. I've always thought about doing it. On TradingView, you have a setup of coins here, right? Whenever I press space, it always moves you on to something different. And I realized when you press space, it cycles through these coins. So instead of me having to search up different coins, I can just press space and move on to syrup. So that is pretty nice. But anyway, obviously we're on to syrup now. So let's go to the daily. So Thursday we had these highs. I think I was talking about. Yeah. So okay, cool. So Thursday, I was talking about. Did I talk about us coming towards 45 cent, 46? Okay, we just about missed it. In this move, we didn't get anywhere near us coming down towards that area. I think I was talking about that area. For syrup, I'm pretty sure. We just about got below equilibrium here, continued upwards. Again, obviously the idea was anyway, in this period was we would get to equilibrium and below, as we've talked about plenty of times before on pretty much every chart. The idea is obviously you have the high, if you're in an uptrend, obviously in this case we're putting past these highs. We've had this massive expansion, good retracement. Clearly as day we're going to be stopping in this area. So I actually want to see if we had a gap area and where it was. It kind of is on the 4 hour, maybe on the 8 hour we could see something. We can kind of see we had a bit of a gap here which we fulfilled, but not, I mean, there's not really too much on the 1 hour to actually focus on in terms of here. We kind of have these highs and lows. There's not really too much on just the 1 hour. We did just about come below equilibrium again. As soon as you start coming below equilibrium, you want to watch to see if you're going to have a reversal. You're going to watch to see if you're coming to an area of a stopping point or whatever, and continue upwards. So again, we came below equilibrium, we reversed, or obviously we came back upwards. In this case, we were still downtrending, so until we printed past this high, we're still in this downtrend. We printed past that high. Again, same scenario we kind of looked at with Well-Lived Defiance, where you have this expansionary move, which results in you printing past that high, and then you can see you retrace back into that gap area. And in this case, we can see here, one goes to 2 hour here. You can see we kind of have a bit of a hovering area here. We actually reversed this gap here, which we actually slightly used in this area, but whatever. The idea is you want to look at the reversal areas as a good area to enter on, whether that be in this retracement or not, because obviously you know once you've had that reversal, you kind of know you're going to be doing this move. You have that move there, and obviously you have a massive expansion. So again, like we were talking about, and we've talked about on many streams before, and I was also saying on Thursday, we have these equal highs. These are going to be a great area to target in this uptrend as we've just started it. And as obviously I've had to admit, We've just about missed the low by 0.4%. And we've been starting this uptrend. You know, we've had this move. We've printed past this 48 free cent area. We've started this uptrend. There's not really much I can say about it. And obviously, equal highs here. These obviously equal highs. You know, on the way down, equal highs here, equal highs here. This is going to be a good area to target. As soon as we get below that equilibrium, we want to be looking for that move past the highs. So again, a good move, and we did that very, very nicely. So I can actually delete this, and then we can continue. I'm going to delete some of this. I just want to clear up the chart a bit. I'll keep this, maybe, I guess. Okay, so again, same idea. We've come up, found that support point. I want to draw this retracement. So we've come below equilibrium. We've obviously started to come past some of these lows. This is okay, cool. Let's look at the 4 hour here. So what do we have? Let's go to the 8 hour. I want to see if there's a gap. We do have a gap on the 8 hour on the accumulation of most things, similar to how we had with here, where we had this gap here with this move. We can see we fulfilled it here. Obviously came a tiny bit lower, but we fulfilled it in this move, and obviously come upwards again. Same thing here. We've expanded. This expansion obviously has resulted in us actually failing a swing, and this is actually also, I know I'm on the 8 hour here. I don't actually really want to look at the 8 hour in terms of a trend. I'd rather look at normal time frames like the daily. Obviously, we've had this before. Daily, we failed to swing. 4 hour, we're normal. Not really too worried there. Obviously, printing past these equal highs, as we've talked about, but we have that 8 hour gap, which basically sits in between this main area. Obviously, midpoint's about 49 cents, getting towards about 48.70. So I would expect price to want to start to reverse. So now that we know what we're doing, in theory, we can start to look at, we've actually had a support point here as well in this candle. We can see we have this gap here on the way upwards. We fulfill it, we pump upwards, you know, printing past this candle in this move, consecutive candles upwards. So if we draw a area here, let's make it, you know, a different color. Let's make it this blue. We can see we have actually quite nicely printed at the top end of this. You can see you use it here. This is also going to be a portion block here. You can see midpoint, we kind of come to that area here. But obviously on the way upwards, we've already taken that liquidity. We've taken these highs here. We're going to stop eventually. We finally stop. We start to reverse, come downwards. And now we're getting towards, not only do we have an 8 hour gap here, we also have this 1 hour order block, which sits as kind of a stacked kind of thing going on. So we can see we've wicked at this low area here. I am interested, obviously, to see if we can kind of come towards, you know, an area. And the interesting thing about this move as well is this actually is a breaker block. We can see we take this low and we take these highs in this move. We can see we move down, we move upwards, we take this move. So this area as well is also going to be an area to focus on for support. We can draw the highs here as a target, because it ranges from the highs to the low, obviously, of this move. But we can just draw out the highs and just look at it. I'm going to make this kind of a thick red, just so we can see it. Oh, like a thick blue maybe. So we can see 49.60 is the area roundabout. Obviously, we can draw the entire area and look at it if we wanted to. Here, we can draw this. So you can see we use this quite nicely. And this is why I like to use breaker blocks. We can see and it's a very similar thing we draw on Ethereum here as well. You can see on the 50-minute if we look at it. We form that move, we take that low, we take that high. You can see we run up, we take that high. So now we know, if we were to watch this, obviously this is hindsight, obviously hindsight's a beautiful thing, but if we were to watch this on the 50-minute and trying to day trade, obviously it's 4 a.m, I wouldn't be awake, but if I was trying to day trade strip for whatever reason, I've already got my I've got my bias, whatever. We know we're in an uptrend. We know we want to look for a reversal, because again, we've looked at from the low to the high. We've looked at this retracement. We've looked to see if we're going to reverse from this area. We've looked at this previous area. I think it was what time was it? I think we had a support point, didn't we? We had 4 hour. Let's go to the 8 hour, see if we can find. Obviously, we had that. Okay, we had that gap area. Obviously, look at, as soon as we've come towards 47.2, we've come to fill this area. So we can kind of assume we're looking to find. We're looking to find a area of reversal. You can see we in terms of the low of that gap, we barely got past it. You know what I mean? Like, we barely got past that low. So we have that there. It's pretty much filling within that gap. Again, 50-minute to 8 hour is quite a big jump. So pretty much fill that gap pretty nicely. And now we've started to reverse. So we have reason to reverse. So obviously watching this move, and again, we came below equilibrium of this move. So now we're watching on the 15-minute. We're looking to find entry, whatever. We might have missed this. We might have not seen that we're at the bottom of that gap. We might have not seen anything, whatever. We can see as well, we've come in to fulfill that area. We know this is going to be an area of interest. The last low before the move upwards. 8 hour gap we fulfilled. We've also printed above this entire move. We can draw this out and we can see as soon as we enter back into this area, we also have this expansion. If we look at the 15-minute, we have a high, we have this move down, we have some highs here, going to the 5-minute here actually. You can see we have this nice downtrend here, high, low, high, massive move downwards, which obviously we have drawn the order block on, but we know we've had this expansionary move, which is printed past this high. So now we know that this is now a move which is printed past the high. We can draw the highest time frame gap, and you can see we've entered on that midpoint. So we have an order block formed and this gap here, which we've retraced it back into. So we've hit back into this order block. We've hit at the midpoint of this gap. This is going to be a good entry. But obviously, if you missed that, you can continue to look at the chart. We had that breaker block. Obviously, take the low, take the high, and you can see really nicely. We've only just taken that high here, and then we've started to retrace, and this is the midpoint of that breaker block here. And you can see we hit that really nicely there with these candle bodies. So again, another great thing to target. So that is obviously just wanted to show reason for that, and just wanted to show how it moved. But we can also see we have this order block on the 1 hour, as we talked about, with this gap which we formed, came up, found support. So we've hit the midpoint, but also the bottom end of the support point, general area. We also have the midpoint of that breaker block. So I do think we have a good stacked amount of support below us in this move, which we could hold and use as a support area. And obviously we are coming to fulfill this gap, which obviously we've already drawn with this black area on the 8 hour, which accumulates to 2 4-hour candles. So we have we are filling a gap. We have an order block on the 1 hour. We have the 8 hour, or we have the 1 hour breaker block, I think we have. So we have all these support points. So I do think Syrup could maybe go up one more time as well, because of obviously we have a lot of different support points to target. So again, from there, if we're targeting obviously from the low to the high, we're going to want to target 53 cent and continue higher. So obviously we'll see how it goes. But again, I think this 53 cent, I'm not saying this last 53 cent move upwards will be the last one, but if we really look at it, we have this high at 53. We have this really long-term old high at 53.3. We have the rest of this gap we could potentially fill, to be fair. If we go to the 8 hour, I want to see the rest of this gap. So we can see we actually have this outstanding gap here. We have there, which obviously is the accumulation of the 2 4-hour candles. Obviously, we go to the 4 hour. Actually, go to the 1 hour, actually. We had the gaps I drew. Where is it? I think there we go. So we had some gaps over here, for example. We obviously came up into that gap on the 4 hour as well. But if we accumulate the 2 8-hour candles, like I said, we can see we barely missed it. Was it the daily? Where was the gap? Oh, here it is, the daily. Okay, so the daily gap we can see we fulfilled. Actually, no. You know what? Now ignore this. This is you want to find the highest time frame gap to accumulate the most candles to average it out, basically. And you can see we've already actually used the daily one instead of the 8 hour. So ignore what I'm saying, but it still stands. We still have that high. Obviously, we could still fulfill the rest of the gap, to be fair, but we still have the high to target, which comes from this massive move, which results in this massive dump. So I definitely think these two relatively equal highs are going to be a great target for Syrup. And if you, again, really look at it, we haven't printed past... obviously, we've started the move upwards. So we've had this move down, move lower. We failed this swing here. But this is the major high. If we go from, obviously, high to low to high, major move here. It failed this swing. But again, if we fail this swing as well, it's equal sides. But again, I will want to see how we respond on 53. So again, the difference between what we've been doing right now in Syrup with this whole move versus now, I think 53 to 53.3 is going to be a good, interesting area for Syrup. Again, it's going to be relatively equal highs. If we target these areas, we could have a bit of a reversal potentially on the higher time frames, but we'll see how it goes. I do think we'll find support in this area at some point here. I do think we could fulfill this gap. Again, the fulfilling of this gap, the midpoint of the breaker block, the bottom of the order block we could use, all stacks at about 48.5 cents. So we could maybe dip a bit lower than where we are now. But again, we are in more than valid area. Again, the top end of this breaker block is also being used. We've wicked towards this order block here. We have fulfilled the midpoint of the 8-hour order block. So again, or we're nearing the midpoint at 49 cents. So I think 49 to 48.5. I know that is a wide range. I apologize. I do think we could watch to see for reversals soon for Syrup, but we haven't started that just yet. Again, we haven't printed past any highs just yet. We're still targeting this low. So I do think we can continue to target deeper for Syrup, but I do expect a reversal soon for Syrup. So there you go, not financial advice. I've got 2 minutes left, not doing too bad. Oh, going on to Sui now. I am actually quite interested in Sui. Okay, so let's see what we've been doing. Let's go to the 1 hour. So Let's go 4 hour actually. Okay, good. Okay, good. So again, we've talked about this gap on the daily or the weekly. We can see the bottom of it was about $3.10. Again, I was talking about $3.15 to $3.10 being a target. We can see the bottom of it is about $3.11. So again, it came really nice to the bottom end of this area. Obviously fulfilled this gap really nicely, and we can see we start to reverse. And obviously we started this within 10 o'clock. So we can see we printed past all these highs here, relative equal highs and whatnot. Fill the rest of this gap area. Go to the 8 hour, we can see. Again, like I said, and this is, I've started to do this recently actually, in terms of stacking up the time frames. We can see that 8 hour gap there. The highest time frame gap you have is what you want to use. So again, 2 4 hour candles are going to be 8 hour. You can see we have that 8 hour gap here. We fulfilled that so nicely. So really good there, usage. Even though it looks like, again, we had this 4 hour gap here, it looks like we fulfilled it. So why are we going to use the rest of this? Again, yes, you could attribute it to this high, but obviously we had that 4 hour or that 8 hour gap there. Used that beautifully. Obviously retraced, but again, importantly in this move on Thursday, as we talked about it, we had previous areas below us. We actually had this gap here, which we actually use as support here. We can go to the 2 hour. We can probably try and find the gap we used. Where were we? Okay, here we go. So we know the higher time frame bias is the fact that we are in this gap. So we know we're in this gap on the daily. So we're going to be looking for a reversal. In theory, we've come below equilibrium. We're into this daily gap. We've come to fulfill it. So not only in this move have we come past this low, we've fulfilled this gap pretty much to the T, and we've printed past this high. This is going to be a great support point. You can see we've tickled into it, and then we've come upwards. This is now going to be a propulsion block. We stack this propulsion block, hit the midpoint, off we go. This is also going to be a propulsion block, or this set of candles downwards are probably going to be a propulsion block as we've come upwards. So somewhere in here, probably towards midpoint, could be support as well. But we do have that support. We have this area. So we are starting to produce areas of support. We can see, obviously, we produced this. We produced this candle here. Let's go to not the 2 hour. Let's go to the 1 hour. Oh, no, the 4 hour, I mean. Maybe not the 4 hour. The 4 hour, you can't actually see it. Let's go to 1 hour. So we had that gap, which was this set of down close candles before the move upwards. So we can see it a bit better here. If we do this, you can see... there we go. So again, just about tickling into that area here. Obviously, we have also important thing as well. And this is a good reversal thing. A thing I've been looking for as well is inverting gaps. So... you've come past this low. Okay, great. Expansion, retracement. We've completely come past this gap. We don't want to use the support. Again, we've come into a daily support point. Why are we going to be wanting to use this as... but why are we going to be wanting to use this? You know what I mean? We want to come deeper. We want to fill this entire area. So, what we have this these lows here. We've continued downwards. And you can see in this gap area... we could probably look at the 2 hour. Oh no, we can't actually, because it fulfills the 2 hour. Whatever. We can draw this gap. This is the only gap we have. We can see we produce it, and we're aware of the fact that we are in this higher time frame support. We can see we have it there. We reverse it, and we've come back to use it as support. So are we not only in this order block, coming past this low, higher time frame buy area, if you will. And obviously down, we've taken this area and now we've come upwards. So we're in this support area. You can see we start to use it here as well. So not only have we used this gap, but this is also a area of buy in this candle. And you can see as well, we have this up close set of candles where we also are going to have a support point in this period. So you can see we've kind of come into this area. We've come upwards. If you draw it based on this singular candle, we can see we've come to the midpoint. But regardless... we've got this support point as well. So we've got a really nice stacked area of support for Sui. So again, confidence in this is pretty high. Again, obviously, we've already been talking about this since here and whatnot. So again, I'm pretty confident that we've started the reversal. We've started forming support on the way upwards. Obviously, order blocks and whatnot on the way upwards, XYZ. We've got this gap here on the 4 hour. We do have a set of candles. I'm interested to go to the 8 hour and have a look. We actually are pretty much sitting in this gap area as well for Sui. We've only just about kind of came outside of it here. Also on the 4 hour there as well. For this candle, so we do have that as well, but obviously we are coming downwards. What I do want to do though, and this is the important thing as well, is I want to draw the equilibrium so we can see it. I guess I want to go to the 1 hour. So we've come past it. We had these kind of equal lows here. We've come past them. We had this gap on the on pretty much just the 4 hour realistically. If we just pay attention to the 4 hour, we just have it on the 4 hour here. So we are having these highs and lows. So it looks like we're actually reversing this area. We also have this gap here we formed and then reversed pretty fast. So we do have a deeper support point we could target as well. I'm going to delete this for now. And this sits in the optimum range. So I do think $3.30 basically is going to be probably a good area for SUI. And I do think we are going to continue this trend upwards. Daily wise, again, obviously, if you look from the major, this high to this low, we're above equilibrium. We've filled this gap on the daily. So it does look like on the daily we want to look for reversal. But remember, the daily, we've looked at this retracement. So even though we have this downtrend, we're going to stop at some point. And I think this isn't, it's like, oh, well, why don't you use this high to this low and use the equilibrium of this downtrend to look at the gap here. This is probably an optimum area. If we draw this quickly, you can see, oh, well, look at the gap. It's in optimum area. We're going to find resistance. And yes, obviously, we found a bit of a stopping point. But remember, and this is the main thing, it's like we're in this weekly uptrend, as I've shown multiple times. We're in this weekly uptrend, obviously taking this high. What we're going to want to do, we've come up, we've started a downtrend. Obviously, in this case, it's the same scenario. It's like, okay, yes, we can draw the high to the low, and we can see, okay, cool, in this case, high to the low, we have gaps. We can probably go to the 2-day to find the widest gap, if we go to it here. There we go. Okay, there's no wide gap there, actually. It's a complete lie. 3-day, no, 4 days have a gap. Weekly does have a gap. It's not what I wanted to do. It's not what I wanted to do. Oh, no, I did, actually. What? Wayfair? I want the 1 week. There we go. I'm trying to find this gap. There's just no gap, is there? Maybe there's no gap. Fine. But regardless, let's go to 4 hour, actually. Oh, no, daily. No, I don't want Domino. Dominion Energy, go away. Okay, there we go. Obviously, we filled the gap, whatever, but the main thing, actually, we can actually look at this properly. We have come up past these highs, we dump. This is actually an order block. So that is probably an area to focus on. We kind of come to that midpoint. So what do we have? Let me go to the 4 hour here to actually look at this a bit better. So we have this. Okay, here we go. This is interesting. So okay, so we have this high, we have this low. So we kind of had this little bit of a move here. We take the high, and then we've taken this low. So this is going to be our little range we could focus on. So again, obviously drawing that line across from that low, we can see we basically stopped there in the candles pretty nicely. So we do have reason, but whatever. Again, there's no reason for this. I'm 6 minutes over. I need to stop the stream soon. But anyway, whatever. In terms of just following the example I was giving before I got sidetracked, the idea that you continue, and yes, you can clearly find downtrend in this period. But it's like, okay, you're going to stop soon. And obviously, you can clearly see where we stop at. We can probably even go to the 3-day here. And you can see, okay, there we go. Really nicely. Accumulation of all the candles here. Singular gap. We fulfill it to the T, actually. Really nicely there. Pretty much to the T there. So obviously, one area to target, you want to aim for the midpoint. Next area to target, obviously, it's this area in between. And again, this is the 3-day. You're going to want to watch on the time frame to look at where you're going to stop at. And obviously on the daily, it's like, oh, well, look, you have the bottom gap there. Why don't you use the bottom gap? Yes, okay, there you go, bottom gap, simple. But, you want to look at the higher time frame to find the highest time frame gap you can find on this period of time where actually, go back to the 3-day. Oh, no, where was I? Oh, no, I'm here. I'm looking at the wrong area. So you want to find that highest time frame gap. And obviously in this case, you can clearly see it's there. Actually, you have a 4-day thing there. But whatever, doesn't matter. And then you fill that area, and then you found the reason to stop, and then you go upwards, and it's like, okay, well, why have we not used the high to the low, and why have we not found resistance in this gap here at $3.29 and reversed? It's because we're not supposed to, because we're looking at the actual trend. If you look at the actual trend of this area, is we have this gap, which I think I've drawn on the 2-day or whatever it was, and obviously we've kind of come to the midpoint of this area. Oh no, we have this singular gap on the daily. I think, was this a 2-day gap or something? Why have I drawn this? Is it a 3-day gap? There we go, yeah. So it's this 3-day gap. We've come to the midpoint of here. Okay, good area to target, I suppose. And then obviously there we know, okay, we're supposed to stop here. So, again, same thing. We have the uptrend, we have the downtrend, we have a move upwards. And again, highs, we have all these highs, and we're obviously coming up deeper. And again, the weekly trend is this. So we're going to want to target the highs. So, good news for SIP holders. Anyway, I am 8 minutes over, going on to 9, and I'm just talking constantly. So, that is it for me. thank you, all of you, for being here. Appreciate you all for joining. Everyone on Square, everyone on YouTube. I've bored everyone to death. Okay, well, once it hits that syrup, going on to Solana, maybe considerable. Well, I've done Bitcoin, I've done Ethereum. I know a lot of people leave, and a lot of people get bored because they don't really care about some of these coins. So, yeah, I will move it on along now. I am done. Thank you, all of you, for being here. The ones who have stuck by, shout out to you all. Yeah, I know Tariq was here. Tito. Some protagonist, don't recognise the name. Shout out for being here. Fitting Crypto. Let's see some Crow videos. Thank you, appreciate it. Tariq, thank you for sticking to the end. I know I talk a lot about coins you probably don't care about, but there it is. I'm done. Appreciate you all for being here. I will be back Tuesday. And I think Wednesday, we might be doing a quiz stream, I think, on Wednesday. So I assume we will be doing that. So I'll be back then as well. So Tuesday, you'll see me. If anything considerably unearthingly crazy happens to some of my TA, and again, Ethereum didn't really change, Bitcoin didn't really change, Solana didn't really change, a lot of things didn't change. I don't really have a lot of time. Whenever I say stuff, it's normally on the higher time frames, and it's normally things which play out by the time the stream comes along. So I don't really talk in the Telegram on the charts because I do it on my streams, and it doesn't really change a lot. So obviously, if something drastic changes, I'll obviously post it in the chart area. If not, you'll see me on Tuesday. And yeah, you'll see Mike, I think Monday. Obviously, he's got some videos to do as well. He'll upload them. So other than that, you'll see me on Tuesday. You'll see me Wednesday. See me Thursday. You'll never get enough of me. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But until then, I will wish you the best. Have a great rest of your evening. Have a great rest of your morning, if it's obviously time zones and whatnot. And yeah, see you next time. Thank you so much. Goodbye.